He had to become a relative of us. Remember the story of Ruth, where her husband had died and he had land back in Bethlehem. And it's so interesting that Bethlehem is the whole point of this, because that's where Jesus Christ was born. And the place where God was made flesh in Bethlehem was the place that the story of Ruth kind of focuses upon, because when her husband dies, they go back to Bethlehem. And the Bible tells us that if there was a near of kin, in other words, a blood relative of Ruth's deceased husband, he would be able to marry her, and through that marriage, have a child, and that deceased husband's name would continue through that child. And then the other children, they would be with her and, of course, her new husband. And that allowed him, this blood connection, allowed that to happen. They call it the Levirate law. Well, God is God. It says he took not on him the nature of angels, but took on him the seed of Abraham. Because human beings are not angels and human beings are not God. So God had to take the flesh and blood that we have. He had to become kin to us. And that kinship is shown in leading up to a possible unity and a union. And that's why Ruth ended up marrying Boaz, which was a nearest kin. That allowed a child for her in her husband's name. Well, by the same token, God partook. He didn't have flesh and blood at one point. He was just a divine spirit that's eternal and had no beginning. A spirit doesn't have flesh and blood, but he took flesh and blood, partook of it, manifested himself in it, according to 1 Timothy 3:16, and then became kin to us. So there's that possibility for union. And that led the way so that his death would count as our deaths.